저는 그 국제팬 서석의 북한 망명 북한 팬센터 이사장이고, 그리고 개별적으로는 그 RFA 자유아시아 방송, 미국의 국제 방송의 기자입니다.
Nice to meet you.
하나님의 교회를 언제부터 알게 되었으며 어떻게 도와주게 되셨는지.
Well, I've been studied new religious movements for 35 years, and that's the main focus of my career as a scholar, to study new religious movements all over the world, including in Asia. So I have read the available material on Church of Almighty God since it started coming out in English by some scholars of China around 2013, and participated in conferences where Church of Almighty God was discussed. Very few people were interested in Church of Almighty God in the academia in the West, and that's probably less than 10 people in the world. And that's why even the Chinese Communist Party invited me in 2017 to go to China, to Zhengzhou in June, and to Hong Kong in September, to participate in two conferences they organize about, but I will say against, the Church of Almighty God. Actually, from the point of view of CCP, it was probably a bad idea to invite foreign scholars, because we disagreed about almost everything. But from our point of view, it was very useful, because we gathered a number of documents published by the Chinese government and Chinese media about the Church of Almighty God. And as a result of studying these documents, we came to the conclusion that accusations against the Church of Almighty God were actually not true. And I insist we came to this conclusion based on documents supplied by the Chinese authorities themselves. So we try to understand very respectfully the point of view of the Chinese authorities, and studied very carefully all the documents they gave to us. But as a result of this study, we concluded that Church of Almighty God was persecuted not because of any crimes they committed. In fact, they did not commit any crime, but they were persecuted because of their ideas. And so if they are persecuted because of their ideas, they have a right to be supported by friends of religious liberty, and they also have a right to the status of refugees in other countries.
그러면 우리도 노스 코리아도 저 중국을 거쳐서 오기 때문에 거기에서 다 그런 중국 공산당의 그 종교 박해 사슬에 대해서 경험을 한단 말이죠. 그리고 북송돼서는 또 교회를 믿었다, 하나님을 믿었다는 것 때문에 나가서 처형되거나 그 영원히 나올 수 없는 정치범 수용소에 들어간다. 그래서 중국의 종교 탄압이 종교 탄압에 대해서 어떻게 생각하느냐?
First of all, all the countries of the world, they signed the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, and the freedom of belief is a part of human rights. So, meaning that any country who is not respecting the human rights and not respecting the freedom of belief is already breaching the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, all of us, human beings and the governments, for us there are a set of ethical things. It's like right to life, right to work is the same right of belief. So something is fundamental, is the basis of everything in this life. So then certainly the country who is not respecting and persecuting people because of that is really in the contradiction of obligations and also the commitments they took. So it's as simple as that. Talking specifically about China is if we have written in the law, as we have, all of us we've seen, right, that the certain religions, they are out of law and they should be arrested and persecuted. So I think there is no proof needed because it's already in the law, meaning that is something in the judicial system of China that these people, they are somehow beyond the law. So meaning that they don't have the right to believe what they believe, and that is not acceptable. And as my organization is dealing with the refugees, people who seek the asylum in the foreign countries, asylum from the persecution, so I would use the same arguments, is that if it is, we have the proofs that people are persecuted because of their religious beliefs, so meaning that naturally the countries in which the refugees are asking the asylum, they should be given. That is very simple argumentation and goes from the same path, the respect of human rights.
여러분들은 두 분이서 이분들이 난민이라고 생각하시는 거죠?
They must be.
Yes.
They must be.
반드시 네.
They must be because we have all the proofs needed according to international law. The refugee status is something that really they're entitled to. There is there are no arguments to say we're not, because all the features, they are exactly in the definition of this.
Yeah, I believe there are two levels of proof. Proof that if you are a member of a Church of Almighty God, you go to jail in China. Proof is not required for individual cases because it's in the law. Chinese criminal code, which is available even in English, Chinese authorities put in the internet, as an article called Article 300. According to this article, they say using CEGR is punished with 3 to 7 years in jail or more. And CEGR means heterodox teachings. And in practice, we can know which groups are CEGR because they publish lists. And Church of Almighty God is in the list of the groups defined as CEGR. Now, what means using a CEGR? Here we have case law. Again, many decisions are published officially in Chinese government's websites, and it says using a CEGR means being active in a CEGR, and interpretation is very broad. Even if you have in your home some literature of a movement classified as CEGR, that's already using a CEGR, you go to jail. So we don't need evidence because it's clear, it's in the law itself. But if you are active in the Church of Almighty God, you go to jail. So the only evidence they can require, and that I believe the states are entitled to require, and this the Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so is really a member of the Church of Almighty God. That evidence, of course, they can require, and because anybody can say, oh, I'm a member of the Church of Almighty God. So it's very reasonable that the Korean authorities or European authorities require to prove that the individual person is really a member of the Church of Almighty God. But when the person is a member of the Church of Almighty God, it's clear if he or she goes back to China, he or she will be arrested. That's in the law. It's not a question of interpretation, it's a question of Chinese law.
국제적으로 이런 난민 전도의 자유를 국가가, 정권이, 권력이 탄압하는 경우가 종종 일어나는데, 만약에 이 공산당, 중국 공산당, 그다음에 북한 공산당이 그 종교에 대해서 탄압하는 문제를 해결하려면 국제사회가 어떻게 해야 되겠냐? 이 사람들은 할 수 없습니다. 그런데 우리가 나서야 하는데 그러면 어떤 방법으로 나서야 되겠느냐? 이런 겁니다.
Well, we believe we should go so very quickly. First, of course, lawyers need to fight in different countries to have the international and national laws applied. And then, of course, international organizations such as the UN or the UNHCR can be involved. But ultimately, the decision is taken in the single countries. So the countries and the courts should be persuaded of this right to refugee status.
Yeah, but still, the organizations like UNHCR, I mean the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and in particular United Nations Human Rights Council, they still have the role to play. So there are processes, in particular in Human Rights Council. So and if the member states they active, and then the non-governmental organizations are active in defending and really fighting the cause of protecting people, there are changes to be done. Because like the organization, like United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is that's the role, directly to protect the people who are refugees. And Human Rights Council is to protect the human rights in every single country of the United Nations.